Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather on the 29th day of January 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show once again. Up first on Hazardous Weather Graphics, we've got a blizzard warning out for St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast, for tonight until 6 a.m. Saturday morning, and that's for winds gusting 50 miles an hour, creating whiteout conditions and blowing snow. Again, at times through tonight, kind of a little bit of a let-up going on there at mid-afternoon today with conditions not still windy, but visibility is not all that bad, at least Sabunga and Gamble. But at times they'll expect it to come back down again. And again, could see whiteout conditions with continued cold, gusty north winds and wind chills anywhere from 45 to 50 degrees below zero. Over the Seward Peninsula, that's winter weather advisory, as well as the northwest coast, including Kivalina on up to Point Hope. I believe that's north of Kotzebue, though. And that's a winter weather advisory for north winds to 40 miles an hour, creating visibilities and blowing snow down to maybe half a mile or less at times. And that winter weather advisory is out until 6 a.m. Saturday morning. And from there are no other watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere across the state, northern interior, east side, or the North Gulf Coast or Panhandle. Got a front kind of hanging up along the coastline there from the eastern North Gulf Coast on down along the Panhandle with the main low center east of Kodiak Island. And precipitation amounts not all that much. It appears to be the heaviest rain or moisture producing clouds are still off the coast or to the south over the Queen Charlotte Islands, and kind of sliding back to the northwest because just a few hundredths of an inch in areas over the Panhandle, even the coastal areas today, with Yakutat just under a tenth of an inch, snow falling all day there, with picking up about an inch of snow, wet snow, 34 degrees this afternoon, again that at Yakutat, even less at Cordova. And although the Kenai Peninsula, eastern Kenai Peninsula up toward along the Seward Highway had anywhere up to 4 to 5 inches of snow in some areas there in that localized location north of Seward. So not much of a precipitation producer as yet, but it's going to linger along the southeast coast. You'll have a chance of picking up some more moisture overnight tonight. Otherwise, not too bad. We've got an upper level low along the northwest coast there of the northwest Arctic coast, or the western Arctic coast up to the northwest there, producing kind of a widespread area of light snow for the western north slope down to Kivalina with gusty winds there as well, gusting 40 miles an hour. And for that winter weather advisory, and about the same at Point Hope, and also 45 mile wind gusts through the Bering Strait into St. Lawrence Island. And those strong winds extend southward, also along the southwest coast, Cape Romanzoff, north winds 45 miles an hour for peak wind gusts, and about the same there for the Pribilof Islands, with winds gusting about 40 miles an hour or so, 45 miles an hour, all the way down to the eastern Aleutians. Actually increase. Strongest winds were over the Alaska Peninsula today, northwest gusting 50 to 60 miles per hour, with Ahkun Island and Cold Bay having winds gust close to 60 miles an hour. King Cove, False Pass, about 55 miles an hour, and Unalaska, 52 miles an hour. And that, of course, pulling the cold air southward, so we've got snowfall levels all the way down to sea level along the Alaska Peninsula, nearly almost to sea level for Unalaska there, and definitely for the Pribilofs. Temperatures in the 20s up that way. But you can see moisture pretty sparse there, kind of the low cloud deck of the cold air, Arctic air coming out over the open water, and that producing some light snow. St. George may have picked up a couple inches of snow from their precipitation amounts they reported, a couple inches, otherwise much less along the Alaska Peninsula and over the eastern Aleutians. And dry day for Kodiak Island there on the just a little bit too far to the west. Fair amount of clearing, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, on up into Cook Inlet and south central Alaska. And then you pick up the clouds over the Kenai Peninsula, that low pressure area. And you can see several waves forming, one just west of the Queen Charlotte Islands. That tends to pull the moisture out of the frontal boundary to the north there as it sort of redevelops again off the coast. But looks like the main precipitation, at least so far today, has been off the coast. And again, tracking back to the northwest. Out to the west, break over the Bering Sea, mostly clear skies, Adak and Atka, sunshine, although the cirrus now spreading into Adak Island, and that the cloud shield associated with the next big storm coming in to the southwest Bering and western Aleutians. And you can just see it on the edge of the chart there today at 977 millibars. Over toward the Komodorskis, or just to the south a little bit. Warm front spreading warmer temperatures on the southerly winds with a snow to rain situation for the western Aleutians, and winds picking up toward to gale force. Otherwise, central Bering Sea, light winds, lingering areas of light snow and snow showers extending all the way down to the Fox Islands, where they had mixed precipitation reports today. Flat out snowfall, again with temperatures below freezing for the Alaska Peninsula. Heaviest amounts on the Bering Sea side and lesser amounts to nothing at all on the Pacific side of the peninsula there. Dry for Kodiak Island and some snow showers up and along the southwest coast, a little bit into the Kuskokwim Valley, and an upper trough kind of signified by that dashed line up over the northwest, produce an area of light snow there, but again, half an inch tops, maybe an inch in some isolated areas, but that's generally not the rule. Dry day though for the northwest interior, or I'm sorry, the north slope in the Arctic coast. Basically dry, maybe some flurries, and strongest winds again from Point Hope, Cape Lisburne through the Bering Strait. And the panhandle, that front along the coast, hung up, and it'll stay that way tonight. Kind of pushes inland, so you have a better shot at getting some a little more in the way of precipitation. Again, sea level out along the coastline, mostly rain or rain mixed with snow, but inland and any elevation you'll be in the form of snow, but nothing heavy expected. Mixed conditions for the North Gulf Coast, but again, mainly remaining off the coast there, and then still some lingering light snow for western Prince William Sound into eastern Turnagain Arm, Portage, Whittier, and maybe Valdez will keep seeing some occasional light flurries or light snow. But another main area up there over the Brooks Range, could be some blowing snow up there with a tighter gradient and the snowfall. Otherwise, snow showers extend southward to, say, Denali and maybe the eastern Kuskokwim Valley. Snow showers continue over the Alaska Peninsula. Winds become quite light, in fact, almost variable there for the Fox Islands. And that next front, again, storm and gale force winds associated with that. In advance of that front, pushes eastward on Saturday, starting to deteriorate the conditions in Adak. Otherwise, the Fox Islands looking good tomorrow. Alaska Peninsula much drier. Isolated snow showers now for Bristol Bay with the remnants of that trough, but clear and cold conditions over the western interior. And that area snow shifting eastward over the eastern North Slope, Brooks Range into the upper Yukon Valley. Koyukuk Valley, more of a showery condition down in toward the central interior. And tighter gradient, Alaska Range and Kodiak Island, Cook Inlet. Look for gustier winds through the mountain passes there. And stays unsettled over the Panhandle. And then that changes. Look for mostly clear skies for the southeast coast for Sunday and Sunday afternoon, or variably cloudy. Still a risk of maybe a snow shower or two down toward Dixon Entrance. And then that area of light snow extends southward to the North Gulf Coast. Cold high pressure builds in over the North Slope. Temperatures well below zero over the western interior. Coldest, of course, over the North Slope and those areas, with milder conditions due to the clouds and snow over the eastern interior. And then gale force winds, maybe a narrow band of storm force winds in advance of that front, push into the Pribilofs. Lows tonight, 20s to mid-30s for the Panhandle, anywhere from 5 above to 15 below for south central Alaska, lower teens Anchorage area, 20s along the coast, Kodiak Island, below zero, north and west of the Alaska Range all the way to the Arctic coast, anywhere from 10 to 30 below, and below zero also right out to the southwest coast, near 20 for the Pribilofs, 30s for the Aleutians. Highs tomorrow Looking upper 30s for the Panhandle, single numbers in teens southern Alaska, well below zero north of the Alaska Range, and near freezing for the Pribilofs, 40s for the Aleutians. Lows Sunday morning, again below zero, even into Kenai Peninsula and Cook Inlet area, and 20 to 40 below up over the northern interior, and well below zero right out to the southwest coast, mid-20s for the Pribilofs. And then highs for Sunday afternoon, upper 20s to upper 30s for the Panhandle, 10 to 15 south central Alaska near zero Copper River Basin, below zero north of the Alaska Range to the Arctic coast, and 30s to lower 40s out west.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic, Saturday morning IFR, central north slope, eastern Beaufort Sea coast. South across the Brooks Range there into the northeast interior, at least the northern Koyukuk and most of the upper Yukon Valley areas. And then marginal VFR south of there to about the Alaska Range through much of the central interior. And then just a band of marginal VFR along and west of the Alaska Range into the Aleutian Range. That expands across all of Bristol Bay. Much of the Bering Sea marginal with a couple of bands of IFR out there, one just west of the Pribilofs and rolling into Unmak Island. The other one out toward Chimionat marginal VFR for the Panhandle, Prince William Sound into the western Copper River Basin. Afternoon, good VFR, western and southern Alaska there from just central Tanana Valley holding on to some marginal VFR. IFR up to the north there, areas of both marginal and IFR conditions on up to the Arctic coast. Otherwise, the southeast coast improving, holding on to some marginal VFR, Yakutat, and all along the coastline there, but inside waters of the border pretty good. And IFR into the northern Bering Sea, St. Matthew Island, down across the Pribilofs, and then another narrow band there, right across, say, along and west of Kiska Island. Otherwise, marginal VFR eastward there, right up to the western Alaska Peninsula. And on Sunday morning, that IFR expands out over the Bering Sea, just catching St. Matthew Island, still covering the Pribilofs, down across the central Aleutians. Marginal VFR either side of that zone, Alaska Peninsula and Nunivak Island, but VFR, St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait, all the western interior and southwest interior from Bristol Bay to Kodiak Island, VFR. Much southern Alaska, might be some IFR there. Copper River Basin, maybe some marginal VFR for the eastern North Gulf Coast, say from about Cordova to maybe Yakutat. IFR, North Slope, into the northeast interior there, and extending down possibly as far south as the White Mountains. Otherwise, the southeast coast, VFR, with the exception of the southeastern part of the Panhandle there, looks a little marginal. And for the afternoon, that area shrinks but hangs on there. Southern Prince of Wales Island, Annette, Ketchikan, and those areas into Dixon entrance with the marginal VFR. Otherwise, VFR, and still some IFR possible, Copper River Basin, and then marginal for the Fairbanks area, and possibly even Denali and Nenana, maybe to Delta. Could be marginal, then Northway and Tok VFR, though, and then up to the North Eagle in the IFR zone there, up to Old Crow and eastern and central Brooks Range and the eastern Beaufort Sea coast with good VFR from the northwest coast there, western Arctic coast, right on down across Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island. And a big band of IFR there for the central and eastern Bering Sea, but not quite making it to Nunivak Island. And a Tuvik IFR tomorrow, mostly IFR for Adigan. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR. VFR also for rainy, windy, VFR. Mintasta and Isabel, both VFR for the eastern Alaska Range, and for Tanita, VFR. Good flying for Portage, VFR, and Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels at the surface of the North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, and down along the coast of the Panhandle, and just south of the Pribilofs, and a big push of warm air pushing 8,000-foot freezing levels on those southerly winds right up over the central Aleutians. Icing, areas of isolated moderate or considerable moderate rime icing there, western Aleutians, and shifting up to the northwest Bering Sea there with lighter possibilities in toward Adak, and up over the northeast interior could be some areas of icing there, and some possible icing along the southeast coastal areas, but generally pretty good icing wise for the remainder of the state. Jet stream for tomorrow, northwest, good northwest jet there at about 100 or 90 to 120 knots. along the west coast or from about the Bering Strait, and then southwest up to 130 knots for the western Aleutians, coming over the top of that big ridge center just south of the eastern Aleutians. And then kind of a trough with several centers embedded in that trough, one up over the Arctic coast and then the eastern Copper River Basin and off the Panhandle for light wind conditions along that feature. And at 9,000 feet, 55 knot northwest winds for the Alaska Peninsula, 75 knot southwest winds across Adak and Atka, and 3,000 feet, strong winds for the western Aleutians. Otherwise pretty light over the interior, maybe 35 knots for the eastern North Gulf Coast, 50 knots across the Aleutian Range. Moderate chop, Cook Inlet to Kodiak Island and northern Bering Sea, and the central and western Aleutians look pretty bumpy, and some of that will extend into the northern Panhandle.
Why is plastic marine debris so common? We know there's trash in the ocean. Unfortunately, a lot of it is plastic. We find plastic everywhere, from the ocean floor to surface. The plastics are all shapes and sizes and all different types. We find plastics on beaches, and also inside animals' stomachs or wrapped around their bodies. That's bad news for our ocean and the animals that live in it and near it. It's also bad news for us. A recent study from the University of Georgia estimated that 8 million metric tons of plastic trash enters the ocean every year. That's like putting 5 bags filled with plastic on every foot of coastline in the world. That's a lot of plastic in the ocean, and it's there because, well, we put it there. The 5 most common items found during the International Coastal Cleanup are plastic cigarette butts, food wrappers, plastic beverage bottles, plastic bottle caps, and plastic straws and drink stirrers. Notice anything in common with those? It's a lot of single-use, disposable plastic. It goes without saying, we produce too much waste. That waste ends up in the ocean when we litter or don't recycle. Plastic is an important part of our modern lives. We use it for a lot of good things. But we need to take responsibility for how much we use every day and where it goes when we're done with it. The 3 R's can help, and it's up to every single one of us to practice them. Reduce your use of disposable plastic. That's anything you use once and throw away. Just use less. Reuse disposable plastics when possible. A plastic bottle makes a great coin piggy bank or watering can. The possibilities are endless. Recycle anything that can be recycled so it stays out of landfills, where trash can blow away. Ocean plastic is a huge problem that's only going to get worse. Unless we change our ways, we can do better for the ocean and for us. Why is plastic marine debris so common? We know there's trash in the ocean. Unfortunately, a lot of it is plastic. We find plastic everywhere, from the ocean floor to surface. The plastics are all shapes and sizes and all different types. We find plastics on beaches, and also inside animals' stomachs or wrapped around their bodies. That's bad news for our ocean and the animals that live in it and near it. It's also bad news for us. A recent study from the University of Georgia estimated that 8 million metric tons of plastic trash enters the ocean every year. That's like putting 5 bags filled with plastic on every foot of coastline in the world. That's a lot of plastic in the ocean, and it's there because, well, we put it there. The 5 most common items found during the International Coastal Cleanup are plastic cigarette butts, food wrappers, plastic beverage bottles, plastic bottle caps, and plastic straws and drink stirrers. Notice anything in common with those? It's a lot of single-use, disposable plastic. It goes without saying, we produce too much waste. That waste ends up in the ocean when we litter or don't recycle. Plastic is an important part of our modern lives. We use it for a lot of good things. But we need to take responsibility for how much we use every day and where it goes when we're done with it. The 3 R's can help, and it's up to every single one of us to practice them. Reduce your use of disposable plastic. That's anything you use once and throw away. Just use less. Reuse disposable plastics when possible. A plastic bottle makes a great coin piggy bank or watering can. The possibilities are endless. Recycle anything that can be recycled so it stays out of landfills, where trash can blow away. Ocean plastic is a huge problem that's only going to get worse. Unless we change our ways, we can do better for the ocean and for us.
What is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? Well, first, let's talk about what it's not. It's not a floating island of trash like a garbage dump or a landfill. It's also not the only patch. They exist all throughout the ocean, and the Pacific Garbage Patch just happens to be the most famous. Garbage patches are large areas of marine debris concentration that are formed by rotating ocean currents called gyres, kind of like big whirlpools that suck things in. A garbage patch is made up of tiny plastic pieces called microplastics that are less than 5 millimeters long. It's more like pepper flakes swirling in a soup than something you can skim off the surface. You might come across some larger items like plastic bottles, but it's possible to sail through a garbage patch and not see anything. And they're a big problem for the ocean and us. People often ask why we can't just scoop up all the marine debris in the ocean. And the answer is, unfortunately, it's just not that simple. The first challenge is the sheer size of these garbage patches. They're huge. They're constantly moving with ocean currents. And there's debris from the ocean surface all the way down to the sea floor. Not to mention all the marine life we would disrupt if we tried to just scoop up debris. So what can we do? Well, the ultimate solution is prevention. And we need to keep that as our highest priority. We can reduce, reuse, and recycle to keep trash out of the ocean in the first place. And we can participate in things like shoreline cleanups. It's a lot easier to deal with debris before it gets to the ocean. Because until we stop marine debris at the source, we'll just be cleaning it up forever.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis, with the north-northeast winds there, from 40 to 45 miles an hour from Bering Strait along the southwest coast on down across the Pribilofs. Sea ice been moving west-southwest, fair amount, but that'll last for probably another, at least into early Saturday. And then on Sunday, winds will become a little more easterly and stronger there. So the main push will start to become off to the west a little bit. Anyway, coastal water forecasts along the south coast of the Panhandle, Prince of Wales Island along the coast there, south at 20 knots. Otherwise, small craft advisories for the central coast, south winds 30 knots, and gale warnings there on the north coast, at least for a portion of it. East winds 35 knots, and then falling back to 20 knots for extreme north coast there around Yakutat. And Lynn Canal, north 20 knots, small craft advisory Stevens Passage for northerlies at 25, southeast 15, Clarence Strait. And for the Sunday outlook for Lynn Canal, north 30 knots, and small craft advisories continue for Stevens Passage for north winds at 25 knots, and 20 knot winds out of the north for Clarence Strait with 4-foot seas. Easterlies 15 to 20 knots for the south coast, seas 11 feet, and then east-southeast at 15 for the north coast, seas 7 to 9 feet. For Prince William Sound, northwest winds 25 knots tomorrow and a little gusty, seas 4 feet, northeast 20 knots for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Turn northerly there as you head west along the south coast of the Kenai Peninsula. Barren Islands, gales northwest 40 knots, and full gales for Kamishak Bay out of the west at 45 knots, seas 16 feet. Cook Inlet northerlies 10 to 15 knots with 1 to 3 foot seas. And for Sunday, we'll go for small craft advisories for southern Cook Inlet as winds increase to 25 knots from the north. They'll diminish to 30 knots for Kamishak Bay out of the northwest. Minimum gales for the Barren Islands, northwest 35, and the North Gulf Coast, northeast winds 15 to 20 knots, 5 to 6 foot seas. Prince William Sound, northeast of 15, seas 3 feet. Kodiak Island, gale warnings, 35 knots out of the northwest on the east side, 40 gusts 55 knots there for Shelikof Strait, still out of the northwest, and northwesterly 40-knot winds all the way down the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula there to Castle Cape. And then gale warnings, Castle Cape to Cape Saratchev on the Pacific side of the peninsula. Northwest 35, northwest winds 30 knots there from Cape Saratchev up the north side of the Alaska Peninsula, including Bristol Bay. East 25 knots for Bristol Bay on Sunday, seas 5 feet, easterlies 30 knots there on down toward for the north side of the Alaska Peninsula. South side, south 30 knots, seas 12 feet, and then northwest 25, Castle Cape to Sitkinak up the east side of Kodiak Island. Winds coming down to 20 knots for Shelikof Strait out of the north. And for Unalaska Island, south to west winds 20 knots, 8 to 10 foot seas. Unmak Island, small craft advisory, southerlies 25 to 30 knots, AKwx south 30 knots, seas 10 to 13 feet. And gale warnings from Chitka, Kiska, Shimianatu for south winds at 40 knots with 20 to 24 foot seas. And for Sunday, Western Aleutian, Shimiatu to Kiska, southwest 25, Amchitka Island, south 25 knots. Gale warnings for Aviation, south 35 knots. And 40-knot gales will be blowing across the eastern Aleutians out of the southeast, 40 knots, with seas running anywhere from 12 to 24 feet. And for the southwest coast, small craft advisory there for the Yukon or Kuskokwim Delta coastline, south of Nunivak Island, northwest 30 knots, north 20 knots for the Yukon Delta coast, and brisk wind advisory St. Lawrence Island, north winds down to 25 knots, and small crafts for the Pribilof Islands, southeast at 25. Outlook for Sundays, gale warnings, Pribilof Island, southeast 35 knots, 45-knot winds with 28-foot seas for the northern Bering Sea, St. Matthew Island, east 45 knots for St. Lawrence Island, and 30 to 35-knot easterlies for the southwest coast. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, not bad wind-wise there, northeast 5 to 10, 15 knots for the central and west side, and then northerlies 20 to 25 knots from Cape Beaufort to Wales. And then on Sunday, northeast winds 20 knots, Wales to Cape Beaufort, otherwise 15 knots out of the northeast for the remainder of the Arctic coast. For tonight, front hangs up on the southeast coast, rain and snow there, and snow in the interior shifting eastward, and then continues to shift eastward, but some of that might extend down to the North Gulf Coast with colder temperatures and high pressure and clear skies for Sunday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.